Hey everyone, welcome to the BPD Bunch. I'm your host, Xannie, and today I'm here with Carys, André, and Katja. Today we want to talk about BPD, self-sabotage, and boundaries. If this or other BPD-related topics interest you, please make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on your notifications so you do not miss anything. So when I'm talking about self-sabotage and boundaries, what are some of the first thoughts that come up for you?
Crossing boundaries for me has caused a lot of, or lack of boundaries caused a lot of self-sabotage indirectly and directly in my life because I didn't really know what boundaries were. So I think when you don't have boundaries yourself, it's very hard to recognize boundaries in other people. So when someone does exercise a boundary, I often would take it as a personal attack as opposed to them just saying, look, that's not something that I want to do. So I'll give you an example. I can't go too deep, but in a therapy session, I'm fascinated with hair. And after a session, I'm walking out, and my therapist has this really lovely hair, and I touched my therapist's hair I'm like a little kid, shiny, and I don't remember doing it. My therapist said, "Look, we're in a process that you can't do that," and I was like absolutely mortified because I was like, obviously, I didn't think about doing it in a malicious way, but in my brain, I'm like, "Oh, shiny objects." So sometimes it's the little things that we fail because we always think of self-sabotage as major events and really grandiose gestures, but sometimes it's just the little things like not recognizing boundaries, and then that I think sets the table for a bad dinner, as it were. Because you start off with the wrong fork and spoon, and next thing you're getting the wrong dessert.
Well, I actually don't think boundaries is a small thing. I would say boundaries is a pretty big thing. If somebody touched my hair randomly, I would be pretty upset about it.
After my second marriage ended, when I was in therapy, the therapist I only saw him for a couple of times, but he asked me what boundaries I had in place. And I was like, what? What do you mean? And he's like, well, your boundaries, like, what boundaries do you have? And I'm like, well, I have like boundaries with like my parents because we live in the same house, right? So like they have an apartment, it's separate. We don't have the same living space at all. Like even our like laundry and kitchens and everything are separate. But um with my partner, my spouse, I didn't have boundaries. And he's like, you don't? And I'm like, well, no, because like that's your husband. Like you're not supposed to have boundaries with your husband. The Bible says that you're supposed to like leave and cleave and become one flesh. So like how can you have boundaries when you're one person? And he was just kind of like, okay, well, that explains a couple things. And I was like, what? And then like when he told me whatever he told me, I honestly don't remember because I was so insulted by him um, for telling me that I was wrong and I knew that I wasn't. And yeah, a couple of years later, I realized how important they were. But I think it is not a small thing, and it's so very often overlooked, especially when you're brought up to not have them because your parents didn't know they needed them either. Like if generationally nobody was taught that boundaries are healthy and good, then it's not even on your radar, the accidental acts of self-sabotage because of boundaries and not even knowing that they are supposed to be a thing.
Wow. Harris, you know what? You've just really brought thought something in my head where I've realized in generationally and culturally for me, I just realized that boundaries were often seen as a form of discipline as opposed to a form of self-protection and a way to keep the peace. So that's another thing as well. I didn't understand that boundaries were healthy because I thought boundaries were like you can't eat the biscuits, you have to put the plate away. It was more a series of directions as opposed to things. Well, if you did this, it's likely to create a feeling of upset on my behalf, and I would rather you didn't do it. So when you see it that way, it seems, oh, that makes sense. But boundaries for me were always things: don't do this, don't do that. So it's easy to buy into the thought that when someone does raise a boundary with you, that they're somehow deeply offended and angry with you, and then likelihood is, rather than listening quite calmly, you're ready to react because you think we're about to have a fight, as opposed to we're going to discuss something like two adults.
My current therapist said, she described it in this way that it made it really easy for me to figure out. She said, a boundary is something that I have for me. It's not something I'm enforcing on someone else. So my boundary is I don't interact with someone when they're speaking rudely to me. That means it's my job to get up and leave. And I can say, I don't interact with people who are yelling at me. So I'm going to leave. And that's me enforcing my boundary. It's not saying you can't yell at me because I have a boundary against that. So it really helped put that into perspective for me. I think if we are expressing our boundaries in ways that are non-confrontational like that, then it will help those around us respect them instead of react against them.
It's interesting also because you were talking earlier about if two people become one, there should be no boundaries between them. And what I think is interesting about that is that sort of presumes that you don't have any boundaries within that like a person shouldn't have boundaries within themselves. And one of the things that I've found generally is that most of the skills and constructs that apply to interpersonal relationships also apply to like your intrapersonal, is that the right way to say that, with relationship with yourself. They don't apply exactly the same, but for example, a lot of the relationship skills that you would use to deal with another person, I have found also apply to like your relationship to your own emotions, right? Like judging and being harsh to your emotions is typically not the way that you get them to communicate well with you. It's the same as it is with other people. Right? And I think it's also true with the boundaries. They don't function exactly the same way, but if we are healthy, we also have boundaries within ourselves, like as a way to protect ourselves from even just the things that happen within our internal worlds. But I also had that same belief that like if you really love someone, there are no boundaries. And sort of as André said, it's like if you don't have boundaries for yourself, then it makes sense that you would have that interpretation of that's how relationships are supposed to be. Thank you everyone so much for watching. We hope you got a nugget of wisdom to take with you on your journey, and we'll see you next time.